Well, welcome to Coffee Experts Club, everybody. No Aaron this week, so the boys are back in town.
Boys are back in town.
Sometimes we alternate. We lose a Ben, we lose an Aaron, but we're still running full speed.
Do you know if we're getting Tasha or Ryan today?
I don't know about Ryan, but Tasha said she'd be here.
Nice.
Yeah, we had a nice little powwow earlier.
Right.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the importance of having a structured roadmap. And it is indeed important.
I would say so.
One of the things that I've liked about working with all these businesses so far is the life, that flows into them. It creates the story around them, and having direction, having a roadmap, seeing where you're going. That does exactly that. Instead of reaching around in the dark or, hold on.
There's the Tosh.
There's the Tosh 0.0. Tosh 2.0 in the house.
Tosh 2.0.
Hello.
Hello.
There you are. Oh, you're still using.
Can you hear me?
You're still,
Yep.
Yeah, you're still on that Wi-Fi there.
I sure am. Well, no, now I'm on my cell phone, so it shouldn't be having issues.
It's much better this time.
Oh, okay, good.
I was just talking to a still frame of Tasha earlier. Hopefully she can hear me. Okay, Tasha, today we're talking about the importance of having a roadmap, direction, a way to go, essentially.
She's like, no, not interested. See ya.
Oh, a roadmap? No, thanks. Okay, so instead of feeling around in the dark, reach around, feeling along ahead of you with a foot to make sure that you're not going to step off of a cliff. It sheds light on the path forward. It gives you a place to step next. Roadmap, it creates a foothold for where there was only air before. Having a guide, loose or strict, removes the obscurity involved in ideas and brings power into your hands to be the true instrument of your progress, which is important. Being in power of your progress is important. Otherwise, you are tossed back and forth
everything.
By the pendulum of whatever happens to your business. Working from a place of forecasting and intention rather than reacting, it's a very different business model. And we've been inside of both.
Yes.
Yes. Prevent forest fires and have to put them out all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're Smokey the Bear, but for systems and problems. Speaking out intention, it can be difficult because it's so committal. And one of the benefits of small businesses, as we have said in the past, is the ability to turn quickly, having the ability to shift quick. Once you get to 5, 6, 7, 10 stores, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do things like roll out new policy changes, alter menus, or just adjusting branding or marketing. I'm going to show the class today.
Ooh, show and tell.
A roadmap template. You all see me?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a template we rolled out for a client, and essentially what it does is it builds off of it meets you where you're at. We met them where they were at. We decided exactly what we needed to break down and work on first. So the importance of a roadmap, first of all, of course, direction. Leaders of the business, from the CEO just to the team around that have influence in this level, ultimately decide the direction that the business is taking. Things like quality, guest engagement, community involvement, marketing strategies, employee gratitude, things like that. So this gives you a playground to discuss ideas, priorities, and methods of working on exactly what you feel is important to work on. The idea has been tossed around that if you're not growing, as a business, you're dying, but growth can come in many different forms. Of course, it doesn't have to just be increased revenue. added stores, which are nice. It's a major way to grow, but there are other ways to bring life into the daily routine. If physical growth isn't quite within your reach. So things such as, giveaways, contests, branding, stickers, magnets, bumper stickers. Creating a solid culture within is a good place to start if you can't quite build new stores. Networking with your team to create a little network inside a culture. Culture is priceless, in my humble opinion. So the way that this is a 3-year roadmap. Of course, things get obscure past 3 years, past a year. Things can get a little bit difficult to see a little further out. And without a map, it is easy to get lost, as Aaron likes to tell me. Wherever he is, he must not have had a map to get here today.
He lost his map to Collab.
Yeah, where's the X again? So what we decided for the first year to focus on is systems and structure. So of course, when you are looking at your business, when you're assessing yourself, one of the first things you want to do is think, okay, how solid are we right now? And where are the holes in the business? Well, what are we missing and what could we improve on? What if we just duct taped quickly and walked past to deal with other priorities? And what have we solidly fixed? So some of the items on this list were communication platforms. It's really important, as we've discussed in the past, to have platforms to separate, of course, business communications, personal communications, meeting communications, as Ben's thorough exploration of his products that he's using. It's really important to establish a same speak, Aaron said, a place to put items that you don't just scroll through a text feed to find. Things like tech needs, or say a marketing, or rolling out a new product, or rolling out new menus. Tasha, tell us a little bit about rolling out new menus.
Oh man, that's a headache in itself. Yeah, just making sure everybody is on track and on point, and everybody's hands that are in the pot are stirring it correctly, and it's been a headache, but it's good. We're almost there.
And most things are, a little bit difficult to get through when they're worth doing, of course. But a communication platform,
totally.
Yeah, it isolates communication to specific feeds for specific needs. And that is one of the first things we decided to focus on for systems and structure. In-shop hierarchy, that's important as well. You're going to bring in some clarity within the stand of who does what and who has say over what, whose responsibilities go where, and who is in charge of X, Y, or Z. The way that this roadmap here works is you're going to have the actions, which I'm going to go over, the resources, and the rollout, which is the timing. So the resources are pieces of information, products, sheets, walkthroughs, policies that we've created over time specifically for these needs. So an in-shop hierarchy with the link to exactly what that item is. In-shop hierarchy, it explains exactly what I just talked about. Policies and procedures, also very important, not just because you need them, but as you grow, you also need to assess whether or not they're still effective. Ben, I know you and I have rewritten policies on multiple times, because when you grow fast, things change.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about writing a policy for a small business compared to 150 employees.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, policies for small business, I think you have a goal for policy, like say, I mean, uniform policy. What can you wear in the stand? Like as a small business, like there is some, I think, detail you want to it, because you want it, you're telling your employees what you want them to do. But I think when it comes to a small business, if you got 1 or 2, maybe 3 shops, it's advantageous to keep it kind of vague, because that like literally every year you're going to be updating that policy, because if you're growing, you're going to be your company's going to be changing so fast, so you have to update quickly. So to be like in year 1 of your business, you're like, this is the end all be all policy that will never change. Like that's just foolish. You're going to probably change it 3 months later. So if you do have really detailed policies and procedures, just know that they're going to change a lot. And I would say it'd probably be unhealthy if they didn't. Like, if you're in year one and you're growing quickly and your policies and procedures aren't having to be updated, you might want to take a look at that, because I would expect you to have to update those constantly as you grow and your business evolves and you run into more problems. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be a problem. I need a policy for that now. Or this policy is actually causing a problem. I need to change that.
Yeah, there's it's a climate control of your culture and baristas and comfort level and interactions with guests.
For sure.
I know. I remember when I first started, we had a regional manager, I think we called him. He was the catch-all we talked about in the past. He came up to me. He's like, "So how many times do you adjust your grinder in a day?" And I'm like, 3, maybe. I don't know. He's like, well, you need to be adjusting that all the time. You know, whether when it's colder in the mornings, when it heats up, the humidity in the air, when the sun starts hitting your hopper. Policies are kind of similar in that sense. They're very sensitive. And as you grow, you do need to customize those to make sure that they're still working the way that you want them to.
For sure.
Reviews. We built up into reviews, but some of the benefits of reviews are, of course, making sure your baristas know how to make whatever the drinks are that are on the menu. Knowing the prices are important, even the vague ones. You know, you want essentially them to know most of them, and it's all in your POS, but to be able to recite, you know, at least your most popular medium ice drink, probably important for them to know. And then we worked our way into we had anonymous upper management reviews at some points too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were kind of fun.
I remember doing that. Those were always fun. Everybody got a quick look at how well they were doing compared, or via everybody beneath them going, this guy's a piece of shit. They're doing great.
we got to send it up the ladder anonymously.
So funny.
But it's again a climate check of is my upper level management being effective with lower level management, or my lower level baristas, and vice versa. How are my baristas actually doing? Like, say I'm a manager and I just really like my crew, even though, you know, Eric and Stacy and John are always slacking off. I'm gonna cover for them and work extra hard. But when you have reviews, it kind of makes a manager be honest and be like, well, you know, do they show up early to their shifts? Do they show up on time? How often are they late? Do they make drinks? How's their workflow with other baristas? Yeah. Reviews are important so that you can actually have kind of an eye on what's going on. A company phone and reporting. I don't know how early on a company phone is necessary, but I would love to have one immediately if I was to open a store, because I wouldn't necessarily want people calling my phone. The client that we're working with had landlines in each store individually, which is fantastic for, you know, if you're small and, you know, you have one in the neighborhood over here and a neighborhood over here, the company, you know, the people who live close can call and be like, hey, I'll be there in 30 minutes. And hey, can you have my, you know, iced whatever ready? It's convenient, but as you grow, it's almost unsustainable and it gets messy and it gets confusing. So creating a policy around how to answer phone calls, like a SOP for complaints, you know, of course, asking the right questions and having the right predetermined responses. That's really important, because you don't want just any old response going out there. And then having a way to track things, tracking exactly who called when and what they called about, and if it was a complaint or if it was a compliment or if it was just a question. Having one source to go to for all of those items is just convenient. Management training, part of an important hierarchy. I'd say managers need to be trained, and it is at first. It's messy. It's, you know, when you first start a business, it's like, I just trying to survive. You know, if the money's coming in, it's all good. I'm managing it well. But as you grow 2, 3, 4 stores, management training is crucial. You want them to be able to know the handbook inside and out, the recipes inside and out. You're going to have different policies that managers are going to want to focus on than ones that baristas just focus on. We had the magic binder. We had iteration after iteration after iteration of that. I know you were heavily involved in creating that. I came in a little bit later, but it was pretty robust. It was thick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we realized as we were going, we're like, there's a lot of stuff. Because like, just like you said, like when you first start out, it's like just survival, like, right, survive the day to day. And once you start instilling managers in these shops, you're like, man, there's a lot of stuff they have to know. And to just expect like all of that wisdom to be passed down in unwritten words via parables and stories. You know, like this is how you should treat customers. We're like, okay, maybe we should write this down because there's a lot of information that's really crucial that you learn as a business owner when you first start. But like, if you don't have a way to pass that down to your managers, it's gonna be so difficult on them and frustrating for you if you're an owner or operator. Like, write it all down, give it to your people.
And you're going to have a nice broad personality range from the more empathetic managers to the more analytical managers. And you're going to want to have streamlined systems of how they, well, I mean, like a conflict resolution, you're going to want them to handle things the same way, even though their personal approach would probably be vastly different.
Yeah.
So training people in things all the way down to, you know, the intricacies of dealing with barista issues. And pay scale is one we've gone over in one of our previous coffee experts. It's important to have out the gate a plan for where you're sending these people who work for you. And because you're going to have the ambitious ones that are going to want to climb the ladder. And then you're going to have the ones that just want to be baristas. But for either one, they're probably going to want to see some sort of trajectory for their position. If I want to stay a barista for 10 years, I want to at least know I'm going to get a 25-cent raise every year or something along those lines. To keep me, you know, loyal to the grind.
I like how you have reviews set up in Q1. So you've already sort of like created the foundation for what that pay scale is going to be. You can tie in that review structure you've already set up. Smart.
Yeah, it took a little bit of planning at least, and the way that we approached it was, let's build the solid infrastructure that the year 2 or even Q2, Q3, Q4 of year 1 can stand on top of, because essentially, you know, you don't want to just plug holes in the ship. You know, you want to replace whatever's broken with something stronger so that it can be built upon further down the road.
I like this.
Leadership goal setting. That's another one. It brings, just like we're trying to bring power into the hands of the CEO, the ops manager, the lead team. We want leadership, as in our managers, to also feel empowered that they have control over their direction. In any sense of that, I mean, they're not where they want to end up necessarily, but they're here now. So the more tools that we can provide to them, the way we can teach them the skills that can improve their personal lives as well as make them better managers. I think it's a priceless practice, because people who are empowered, well, they're happier, and happy managers make happy baristas. Happy baristas make happy customers, and happy customers don't just show up all the time. You got to cultivate that. Meetings. So I was a stickler about meeting infrastructure. I really liked to know when my managers were having their meetings, what they were talking about during those meetings, how long their meetings were, who was attending, things like that. Of course, growing, you're going to change what your expectations are. But I would set a date, like first Wednesday of every month for this store, the first Thursday, the first Friday, on and on. Because it's important, I think, for not only managers to have that consistency, it's important for the baristas to expect consistency from their leaders. If I have a leader that is all over the place, my schedule's out late, my policies aren't communicated to me properly, my meetings are always on different days, well, it's not going to give me a lot of confidence in that leader to correct me when I need correction. So getting down to the, you know, nitty gritty of, hey, you know, what does your infrastructure look like? What is your plan for your store as a leader, as a manager? What are your meetings coming to? I think it's important to focus on those types of things.
Would you say that EOS or L10 meetings could fit inside that sort of the shop dynamic? I know we've talked about it like at the manager level and at the upper management level or leadership level. Do you think that's possible for, say, a store manager to be having with their own employees or baristas?
I think that it would be doable. It might need to be a little bit modified because of the whole, I think it's all kept in one place on the Google Drive, unless we want to expect our baristas to go in and actually be engaged in those things. I think it would work wonders on a store if the baristas, you know, because it makes your leadership team feel heard when they come in for an L10. And baristas want to feel heard too. I think that it would be really effective. One of the I think hurdles would be, inspiring your managers enough to keep track of that stuff for their store. Making sure they're updating their documents and updating.
They're like, it's 12 o'clock and I'm fried and I'm tired. I can't do this right now.
Yeah, I've been up since 3:30.
Yep.
I can't even look at a computer screen. Tasha's rolling out. I don't know if her Wi-Fi is bringing her here with us right now.
Can you hear me? I'm good.
Oh, there you go. It sounded like an auto-tune rapper.
You got T-Pain there. She's rolling it out.
Yeah, good old T-Pain just in the background.
Good old T stands for Tasha. I didn't know that. She's rolling it out with her managers right now. So she's going to be doing L10s with her leadership team. Have you rolled anything out yet, Tasha?
Yeah, I actually did an L10 last week, and it was great. It was awesome. They all loved it.
Did you have them use the hub of Google Drive?
So we did our first L10 in person, and then this next one's going to be Zoom. But yes, they used Google Drives. I showed them how to do it. It kind of worked where you can, if everybody's in person, they can see my scroller and like which box I'm clicking on. So it kind of worked in person. We made it do, but definitely goes smoother when everybody's over Zoom.
When you can all see each other's screens.
Well, just like one general screen, yeah.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Culture is a kind of a vague aspect, but I threw it on here anyways because I think if you're going to build a culture, you better, it's going to build itself, but you kind of want to be behind the steering wheel of where it goes, which determine where you're headed early on, so that you get to where you're going. If you have if somebody's writing a book and they just don't know what they're going to write about, it's going to be a super long book and it's going to be boring with no point. You're going to have a point A and no point B. It's just a mysterious road. I think it would be very important to decide what type of business that you want to be for your baristas, for your customers, and for yourself, because there's a lot of personal fulfillment that comes in running a business.
Yeah.
Sales and reach goals. We covered this, exactly what a sales and reach goal is. Did we go over this in Coffee Experts? So just charting, off of historical data, what we expect to be doing every month in sales, and then hopefully an uptick based off of traffic or based off of merchandise or any deals that we're running, marketing campaigns, ads in certain areas. It's just nice to have the data, because the more data you have, the more information you can use to improve. And accountability, which is another kind of vague one, but it's basically expectations that we put out there for baristas, what we expect them to do in the store. So it's not my job to clean the toilet. Like, no, I mean, it's your job to maintain the whole coffee house while you're in here. What did you used to say? The scrub brush is just as important as the portafilter. Something like that.
It's true.
That's a good one.
And it is. It's absolutely true, because aesthetics are priceless too. And then another feature of this roadmap is this is a hyperlink to a year one broken down by quarters, explaining exactly how we're going to roll these things out. Quarter one, 2022, we come together to determine what the purpose is behind quarter one. And then exactly what we're going to roll out, which these are in line with these here.
That's cool.
So they match up perfectly. And then we decide what needs to be rolled out to make it happen, and then who's rolling it out. So down here we have an in-shop hierarchy, and begins with empowering those who show potential. Managers are delegating duties so they can basically make room for higher level duties. Baristas manage the store. Managers manage the systems baristas follow. So what do we need to make this happen? Well, we need an official manager handbook. We need a hierarchy role description, and weekly manager tasks, and then a mid-lead role creation. And these are tasked out to regional manager 1, to the GM, to regional manager 2, and regional manager 1. So it's really concise in the way that we break it down and give tasks and who we give tasks to.
Love it.
So that ties into the L10 system as well. If you adopt the L10 system, these things are rocks we're using the L10 system. Yeah. And we broke them down into big rocks with little notes and dates attached. And we can break those rocks up as we go. And also in here, conveniently located, are these hyperlinks to the very same products that we've created in the resources page. Another really important aspect of a roadmap of having direction is accountability. Casting vision has its place, as is building the infrastructure out behind the direction that the vision is taking us. Because it's not just smoke and mirrors when you're doing business, when you're paying people and they rely on their paycheck. It's actual legitimate practices and goals and plans. And it's one thing to speak out ideas, and it's another thing to pull together the resources to see the ideas through. Maybe there's a solid amount of people on your top level team that you can bounce ideas off of, delegate to, and rely on. Maybe it's just you, a spouse, and spare time in between shifts. You never know what exactly it's going to look like when you jump into this stuff. And in either case, accountability is a major player in success and progression. Building out the habit of not only holding yourself accountable, but those around you on your team is crucial for sustainability. I know we went back and forth on whether or not we needed meeting infrastructure for years before, and when we finally got it, it was a game changer. It basically amplifies productivity when you can track and hold people accountable and delegate out to. Using a map to delegate and create timelines and break down large tasks into small tasks, well, that's the infrastructure that you're building. And if you just cast out an idea out into the void, who knows what's going to happen with it? I'd be like, hey, Ben, remember this idea I told you 3 weeks ago? What are we doing?
Well, and not only that, I feel like, I think the great thing about this and just looking at it is if you're a business owner, like a regional manager or operations, like you can a lot of these problems in your head. Like you can see, like, just if you're in the business all day, every day, you're like, okay, I know this needs to be a thing, but that can be really freaking overwhelming. Like I know even for us, in the, years 5, 6, and 7 at Roasters, it was overwhelming because we're like, gosh, there's all of these things that need to be done. How do we break this into pieces so that I can actually accomplish something? Mm-hmm. Not having a structured meeting system didn't help that at all. But I like this is like, no, it's, there's a lot out there, but here's where you start. Take a bite out of this one, finish it off, and let's move on to the next. And then let's move on to the next. And then before you know it, you're done with Q1 and you've got so much more of your company built out and procedurally built out and on solid grounds. I think this is invaluable, especially if you're a business owner. You're like, how the heck do we even start getting beyond just the day-to-day staying alive? This is great.
I agree. Yeah.
It's I think it's important too, because I mean, if you start a business, you're ambitious. It kind of goes hand in hand with you want to go out and do it. An entrepreneur comes from, it really means someone who goes and does something, gets something for themselves. So when you're in your, when you're in your roadmap and, you want to, okay, after first year, we want to have, if we're at 4 stores after 1 year, I want to have 5 stores. All right. So how do we get exactly to 5 stores? What are the things we're going to need to scale up our business from a mom and pop? Everybody gets together and has fun to, okay, this is serious now. We better update our quality control. We need to update our speed. We need to update our customer relations on the back end. How do we respond to complaints? And who is even in charge of that? So when you're casting out these visions, okay, after 1 year, I want 5 stores. After 2 years, I want 6 stores. 3 years, I want 7 stores. And then we can reassess. It gives you a legitimate place to put your next, dollar bill. Where do I invest? Should I bring in a marketer, or should I do all that myself and focus on building out SOPs for my managers? Where are my problems really lying? Like, I want 10 stores for sure, but I can't do it with 4.5 people and nothing written down anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's a good place to also assess, your business values, and it's where you determine whether or not you can get to that 5 stores or 10 stores, or where do you want to be in 5 years or 10 years. or just in 6 months. You can't think that far ahead, and it is hard. It's hard to think that far ahead sometimes, but 6 months at least, or the next quarter, you can break it down into actual bite-sized pieces that are not too intimidating, maybe slightly intimidating still, but that's okay. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So once you know exactly what you want to focus on based off of your values, then you can say, okay, how do we get there? What are the things holding us back from being there right now? If we're slow, why are we slow? Are our machines too old to pull shots fast enough? Are our baristas not speed oriented? Are our customers real talkative? These are all things that could add into that problem. I know we got to the point of installing timers in our stands at a certain level, and it took me some time to get used to, I'm not gonna lie. But it was, we had to understand why we did it for ourselves as much as why we did it for the customer, because if you're a really customer oriented business, speed is important, but not necessarily to the person at the window all the time. Speed is really important for the person at the end of the line. So when you are assessing your values, it's like, okay, well, do we really care about being that fast? And obviously, if you don't, then your business is in another direction. But if you do, then there are these real steps you can take.
Yeah. I think that's something we figured out. It was that fine balance of no, we want to be semi-specialty coffee. We want a quality experience. And it was always that line of how quickly can we get the best quality possible? But at the same time, that dude in the back of the line is waiting 25 minutes for, at the end of the day, a cup of coffee. What is that line where we're yeah, we want good quality, service and product, but at the same time, that guy's probably not going to come back if he has to wait 25 minutes for a cup of coffee.
Right. Yeah. And if that was their first time.
Yeah, we struggled with that a lot until we got those, those timers, and you start building in systems that help you go faster. But you don't know if you don't have a roadmap.
You don't know. And it took us a lot of years to figure it out. And even when we had them, we didn't know how to use them. It took us a long time to even figure out. We're in the evenings, it's 6 minutes a car. That's okay. I guess that's fine. It took some getting used to. So, and as I said, and as we've said, when you're smaller, it's easier to make those changes. Once you get a lot bigger, it's more difficult to roll out a timer and understand how to use it. And okay, well, if we have 50 cars coming through, potential we could get 50 cars through in an hour. Well, what does the average need to be to get those cars through? Because the timers are good for exactly counting how many cars you have at any given hour. So once you have this brilliant idea of this business that you want to be a part of and run, what are the steps that you need to take to create it in reality instead of just in your head? If we can see where we want to end up, it's there's still hope for getting there. Structuring timelines down from a year to quarters to months to weeks of rollout with every move, you're building up this business with purpose and in control in your hands. So once we have systems and structure, an entire year of focus, because the first year, I think at least the first year that you take the wheel into your hands to direct the business is probably the most important year. Once you take a step back and you can see it, what did we like to say? Pull back the curtain and see exactly how everything is ran. It's intimidating, but it's important to see and to know, and not just to delegate that to Ben to run for you. Ben will do a great job, but it's a big task. Considering your values in real time to build the roadmap, it's crucial to meet yourselves where you're at, because we can lie to ourselves and tell ourselves we're $1 million company with one store, but you don't want to use $1 million policies on your 5 baristas, because it's just not going to work out. So meeting yourself where you're at lets you tackle what's in front of you to help you tackle what's in store. So once you have systems and structure, we decided general accountability was important. It is hard to shift from, my 3 managers is kind of friendly and, loose and, oh, they're, late sometimes, that's fine, I guess, because they're what I have, to being okay, well, if you clock in late, that's a write-up, or that's a first, your first step, or however it is that you track your your reprimands for your managers. But general accountability takes a long time to roll out too, because the managers have to shift into that mindset. And with something like a accountability mindset for a manager, it could take the fun out of it for them, because they're I'm in control of my schedule. Nobody's really watching me. I can manage how I want to. I can schedule how I want to. I don't have to work, Monday through Friday. I can work whenever I want. Those are fun. They're good motivators for sure. But in my humble opinion, it's not sustainable at 10 stores. It's just gonna be a big, messy spaghetti bowl of problems. So creating policies around, if this happens, forecasting, if my manager's late, or if somebody breaks into a stand at night, or if somebody tries to hold up a barista, we had a don't be a hero policy.
Right.
They're not things that you're always going to think about. So even forecasting out. So we created policies to meet the client where they're at, to handle the problems, hopefully efficiently where they're at right now. And then adding, okay, at 6 stores, what are these problems going to look like? Are we going to deal with new problems? Brainstorming and really being creative on what are the things that we might have to deal with. Because you just never know. So being ready ahead of time, contingency plans, policies. If something happens, then something else happens is very important. Just for accountability, just for keeping yourself on track. A roadmap is a roadmap because it's a road, it's a direction. So it keeps you going the direction that after 3 years is up. What do you want the business to look like? Policies are very important.
I think the biggest example of that was COVID.
Yeah.
Nobody saw that coming. And then just the hoops we had to jump through back and forth. Okay, now we have to do this. Now, okay, just kidding. Now everything has to be sanitized. Okay, just kidding. Now someone has to be sent home. If they're, like the constant evolution of like, what should we do if this happens? Because it didn't. I remember when we were in the middle of it, we're like, okay, this doesn't seem to be going away. So we should probably start thinking about, okay, what do we do if a barista comes into the shop and has COVID? What do we do if a manager has COVID? What do we do if the whole shop gets COVID? Like thinking like that is you never know what's gonna come up. But like you said, to help you out so much just in being somewhat prepared for some weird pandemic.
Well, and I want to trust the company that I work for. I want to trust the people above me that they know what they're doing. And if I don't see a problem coming and my manager handles it like a pro, well, that just gives me a whole lot more confidence in the people that I'm working with. So fake it till you make it. You want to seem like a pro, so have your policies out there just in case anything. In case. Complaints. So how to deal with complaints? Do we really want to reprimand our baristas for every complaint? Do we want to give our managers coaching points for a mismade drink or an upset customer because of X or Y, or oh my gosh, did we accidentally put 2% in your kid's almond milk drink? Those are important things to know how to handle when they do show up, because they do show up. Allergy complaints are a big one that you need to know how to handle because it's a big deal. And having policies around, okay, well, rinse your pitcher obviously every time, double check with the customer when it's an alternative milk, things like that ahead of time for those contingency plans. But if it does come to a complaint, because even beautiful, amazing things have their haters, and it's not always us, sometimes it's just haters. Dealing with complaints, where do we keep complaints? Do we have a spreadsheet for it? Do we keep it on a piece of paper? Do I just have it in my recent texts from whatever happened? Where do we keep them? How do we handle them? And do we coach our managers or do we, coach our regionals? It depends on your size and your intention behind it. General accountability around car times was an important one too, because while it's, we're very guest oriented, customer service is a big deal when it comes to coffee. I'm not going to go to a place that's not friendly, even if the coffee's way better than the place down the street, but the baristas know my name. Car times are important, as we touched on. So what's her name? Sally Joe all the way in the back of the line. We don't want Sally Joe waiting a half an hour for her small hot latte.
Yep.
when there's 10 cars in line, you know, it adds up really fast. It compounds for each car, and you have to take that into account. So what is an average that we're okay with somebody waiting, you know, behind 10 cars? And that's important, because then when you start to measure those things and you see that your evening cars are 6 minutes on average, it's like, okay, well, where does the problem start? You know, is it the barista? Is it the customers in the evenings? Is it our machines? And those are things that you can actually control and work on. And having the metrics to track that just gives you all the more power. Peer-to-peer is important. I think it's important for managers to know how to handle peer-to-peer conflicts within their store. While our managers aren't necessarily going to be counselors, they are running a store of anywhere from 5, 10, 15, you know, younger people who are going to have their disagreements. It's just found we all have our disagreements. And when you're working in a coffee shop that's busy, and you know, somebody might say something offhandedly that you don't like, you know, they're going to get a little bit upset. So peer-to-peer management of teaching your managers how to hold people accountable for, well, we had one in our GUA location that one of our managers came up with, and she just called it vibe. She said vibe check. When things got a little weird, she'd just say vibe check. And in my humble opinion, I don't know how effective it was. I was always there for that. But it could be like, hey, you know, things are getting rocky. Everybody just chill out.
Watch your attitude.
Yeah. And you can't always say, watch your attitude in front of customers. It's like, hey man, you know, stop talking to me like that. No, you have to have some sort of more subtle and effective way to bring people back together when tensions get high. And even off bar, you know, if you have things going on in the back of the store, the managers are going to need to know how to deal with their baristas, so that the regional isn't always involved, or the GM's not running down there, or even you as the owner, you don't need to hear about these things all the time. So teaching people exactly how to have a peer-to-peer accountability within their stores, I think is priceless for saving tons of time, management, oversight. Management accountability is, I touched base on that. So once you have established management training, establishing exactly what it looks like on the tail end of training, you know, what are the skills that you want your managers to have after their training is over with? What does their daily look like? What does their weekly look like? Do they have monthly tasks? It's all very important for managers to be clear on. Otherwise, you're going to have the regional managers who are you know, doers, because if you work your way up through management, you're a doer. You got to go do stuff. You got to be a catch-all at some point. It teaches the managers exactly what they need to be responsible for, and sheds light and brings clarity to their everyday duties. Did we have anything early on like that, or did it start all with a magic binder?
The magic binder was the first piece of real, like, this is what your job is. I remember, like, even my first year when I first started as a location manager, it was like, there was nothing. It was like, just go and don't mess up, but I won't let you know how you mess up, but I'll know if you do. It was just kind of like, good luck. I think a lot of what we learned was learned through pain too. I was like, this sucked. I want to make sure if we have another manager, I don't do the same thing to them. They need a roadmap. They need some sort of, like, this is what you do. This is what I expect you to do. And because you and I both know that if you don't do it, it doesn't hurt when I say, hey, you messed up, because you know how you messed up, or, hey, good job. You know what you did good. Without that, you're just managers just like, well, I can show up and I make coffee. Hopefully I do it.
we were open on time. What do you mean?
Yeah, right.
What's wrong? So yeah, it's important to communicate what's needed. And I think scaling, of course, you're going to just want everything written down. I remember when we started writing everything down, we're like, finally, what are these? We have our core values, and then we broke them down into unwritten rules that we've all said and trained, but it's not anywhere.
Yep.
You're going to want everything written down. So daily, weekly duties, as far as maybe ordering, you know, is the manager in charge of certain chores, or cleaning certain areas, or maybe customer facing items, things like that. In shop, basically the same thing. It's just broken down into less oversight and more hands-on work for managers. And reporting. So what is it that what is it that you're tracking? Do you do a cup count? Do you just tally your cash? How do you report your invoices, and how do you record them? Do you have a place to put your when you have to reprimand a barista and you have paperwork? Do you have a place for your manager to keep those things? So writing out policies around these types of topics, I think it's going to bring a lot of clarity, consistency, and more ease to a manager's job, because we all know being a manager is not easy, especially a manager for a company that's not organized. It's chaos. you want people to want to manage. You don't want people to be scared of it. And I said it before, when I got offered my management job, I told Wes I didn't want it. I was like, no, buddy. I'd rather roast beans and work on machines. It seems easy.
Than deal with the loss.
I actually don't want to do that.
I remember he's like, why? I was like, well, man, I just would rather roast beans. Seems like my route. Okay, and then communication. So what needs to be communicated, how it needs to be communicated. We had daily logs, and then shift updates. So are those things you want to practice? Are those things you need to practice? And if you do, what needs to go into them to make them whole? Exactly. And then management accountability, a store success. So these are items like the sales and reach goals, or the incentive matrix, or a roadmap, things that you can bring out to show whether or not a store is on track for success in the way that you define success. And as you can kind of see, I didn't include any resources past a year and a half. I believe just like reassessing policies, you're going to have to reassess these things after a year and a half. Even some of these are probably going to have to be touched up to, bring them up to speed to exactly where the business is at after a year and a half. And these are also things that they're going to need a lot of collaboration and a lot of minds on them, because the more brainstorming you have, the more contingencies that you'll forecast and control you'll have over the future, hopefully. So store success is important I remember I came to you, Ben, and I was like, dude, I don't even know if my store's doing okay. I'm like, I feel like I'm failing. Yeah, and what did you say? You said, well, your year-over-year numbers are up. You're fully staffed. You're doing okay.
You're doing
okay
right now.
No, that's true though. It's like those were the only metrics that mattered. Is your store making money, and are you having to go out and search for a new barista like every other day? Like, yeah. If those two things are good, we're like, yeah, it's great. Just keep making money. Don't come talk to me again for another 6 months.
Yeah. It made me feel like I was doing great. So that was nice. It's like, wow, management is actually really easy.
Yeah, and then later on, we're like, well, maybe the employees should be happy while they're working.
Yeah.
Maybe the cars should be going through quicker. Yeah. Maybe pastry sales should actually increase. And we're like, oh wait, there are a few more metrics that we want to look at.
It's like, wait, your tallies are all messed up. Those,
yeah. Your financial reporting is horrendous, actually.
We don't know how you're making money.
Yeah, exactly. That was a lot of it, though. Like a lot of that company was like, we don't know what, but we just keep making money and selling drinks, so we'll just keep doing that until it doesn't work anymore, which is absolutely not the way you want to run a business.
It was, we were lucky, and we also put a lot of hard work into that luck.
Yeah.
And then year 3 is growth maintenance. So this is another thing of policies. If then, update these policies, update your reporting tools, because what worked at 3 stores, you might have to get some sort of paid subscription to manage 7 stores for, say, your expense accounts, or your how do you do your payroll, or how are you communicating? Do you use Slack? Do you use WhatsApp? Do you have something free? Do you have some sort of project management tool? Things like that. Leadership roles, as you grow, you might not need a regional for 4 stores if you're heavily involved, but at 7 stores, you're going to want some help overseeing those things. You're going to want to define them so that it's not like everybody's doing the same work over the top of each other. And then how are you creating leaders? Because it's, you know, a good leader can create leaders. So are your leadership roles effective in creating leaders? What does it look like to track that? And how effective are those leaders being who are created underneath your, you know, regional or your GM or your COO or whoever they're leading. Focus 2, shop goals and incentives. So retention, how is the retention rate? And if it's good, what are we doing right? And if it's not, what are we doing wrong? How can we fix it? Employee satisfaction, you know, a huge part of retention, right? Are we doing things like culture oriented, maybe a dinner or a quarterly event, or, you know, just buying them some pizza, or, you know, some of the baristas are easy to please. They're usually just hungry. You bring in food and they're a lot happier.
Yeah.
And then competitions is a fun way to say you have 7 stores and your baristas don't all know each other. Well, how can we get everybody involved? How can we make our culture, you know, one cohesive, you know, monster rather than all 7 different little monsters who don't know how to speak the same language?
Yeah.
So competitions between stores that brings not only them into, you know, the managers into a level of competing with each other, but can bring baristas face to face with each other to meet each other. Hugely important for people to know each other in the company. Community outreach. You know, are you doing anything in the community that you're involved in? And what is it that you're doing? Could you do it better? Could you somehow partner with local businesses? Could you give out freebies for, you know, the local softball tournament or something like that? What, you know, are there events going on that we can get involved in? And what does that look like? I know, Tasha, you guys are heavily involved in some of your outreach into the community.
Yeah, some taking place this month. Our teacher appreciation is happening the first week of May. So one of the elementary schools, we're donating 2 cups to like crafts to the morning of the teachers. They come early and they're bringing coffee and
Almost caught
on
that.
Friday
I'm sorry, Tasha, we can't hear you.
T-Pain showed up for the meeting again.
T-Pain is here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I
I
heard
got the
that.
teacher appreciation part. That's really cool.
Yeah, so the teacher appreciation one, parent teacher night, we're involved in that. And then local high school is doing actually like a career event for baristas that I'm looking to hopefully hire some people at. But we got invited to do that. So we're going to set up a table there and just show them for summer jobs, future opportunity jobs, that kind of thing.
That's cool.
Very nice.
Yeah.
We rolled out some stuff that got us pretty involved with the community, and I think a huge return on our, you know, not just our financial investment, but it really built a nice, you know, raving fans. I remember my first manager gave me that book. I just uncovered it the other day. But it's true. You create raving fans by things like, you know, a teacher appreciation. Teachers feel probably like they should be appreciated by given free coffee. I would love free coffee if I was a teacher. I love free coffee and I'm not a teacher.
Yeah, we got on the board of commerce. That too was a great avenue of just knowing what events were going on in town. Any, you know, concerts or big things where there was tons of people. How can we get involved and show up? Even if it was just, you know, some flags and giving out free stickers, or just to know that we were there and to tell them where we were.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think as coffee shop owners, most coffee shop owners, I think, undervalue their position in the community a lot. I mean, there's not a lot of businesses where you're seeing customers 5-6 times a week, like, and the same customers over and over. That creates a lot of community cohesion, and it really, and if you're, especially if you're a successful coffee shop and you've got great baristas, like your neighborhood or rooftop houses that are directly around you, they become a big part of the community, and you become a big part of the community because you're there every day and they see you every day. And that's a hugely profitable thing that I think most of those coffee shop owners value, because you have so much say in the community. You have so much of your brand in the community. So if you can say, hey, look, I want to reach out to my community and start giving something back, that not only, yeah, like you said, increases your profitability, but it also, people begin to look at your brand, look at your business in a higher light. And then it's just not even so much you don't see the profit in dollars and bills, but more of just brand love, that raving fan that you're talking about. When people talk about your business, they say, oh yeah, I like that business because they got good coffee, but also like every other month they're bringing coffee down for the teachers just because they're a part of our community. And that's huge with people.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. For Earth Day, for every drink purchased, human being is planting a tree. We're partnering with the Future of the Trees. And those type of events we do brings in so many people. They're like, hey, I heard you were planting a tree. I'm going to come by and get coffee on that day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Well, thank you for planting trees. That helps me out in the long run. Ben, I think we forgot to drop Slido, didn't we?
We did.
So,
Here, let me
shameless
pull that.
pitch for the Collab team. This is a built out roadmap. I called it the template. This is one that we have kind of completed. What we do is we come in and we can assess where you're at. We meet you where you're at. And we can build this out alongside you based on your values, your plans, your trajectory, the things that you're forecasting years into the future. And we can break them down into bite-sized pieces and make it reality. So this is what we did for this client. We are working through year one as we speak.
I like it.
Ben, anything to add there?
I just checked Slido. We don't have any questions there in Slido. I would, I love this. I think this is great, man. If we had something like this back in the day, God, our lives would have been so much easier.
In a whole different world, man.
Yeah, I mean, and there is something to say about learning as you go, and a lot of it you do have to learn as you go, even if you do have a roadmap. But just the ability to look at and say, okay, I can plan what I'm going to be working on in 3 months, and like spend these 3 months and say, these are the things that are important. These are my rocks. Like, I may want to hit all of this at some point, and you'll have an entrepreneur who'll be like, let's just do all 3 years next quarter. But to be able to say, no, these are the things that we're working on, and they're gonna foundationally create the steps to get to where we want to go. And if we'd had that, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that'd have been so awesome. This is really cool. I think you did a great job. It's invaluable.